Hello there and welcome back to another video. We're going to be talking about a couple of topics here. We're going to be talking about the Gordon Taylor coming out with wanting to play shorter halves. Going to talk about the whole relegation thing as well, and obviously which teams oppose having relegation and such like that as well. And there's one other topic as well that I can't remember the name of. It was about the neutral venues as well. So we'll talk about that as well. We'll sort out the colour on my face as well, hopefully. There we go. So Gordon Taylor, who is the chief executive of the PFA, has raised the possibility of playing football matches that have less than 45-minute halves. So you could be looking at anything like, rugby time, 80 minutes, or like 40 minutes a half. Are they going to go to the extreme and make it quick and fast and do like half an hour halves and have 60-minute games? I don't know. I think it's a pretty stupid idea, if I'm being completely honest, because yes, there will be fitness issues and such like that if games get to come back and be played. There's going to be fitness issues, but I'm pretty sure that like these high class athletes, world class athletes as well, will be able to, and the coaching staff and the coaching teams and the trainers and whatever, I am pretty sure that they'll be able to figure out a way to get the fitness up pretty quickly as well. So I don't think that if you're going to do short halves, then the only way you could shorten it would literally be 40 minutes. If you go any less than that, and even taking it down to 40 minutes a half and having 80-minute games, clubs will then say, well, what about those extra 5 minutes? What about those extra 10 minutes in total? You see a lot of games that get decided in the 89th, 90th, 91st, or Fergie time, 97th minute. You take that away. So then what happens to the game plan for clubs? Well, clubs would have to figure that out themselves. They would have to change how they approach a game as well. It would benefit the players in terms of fitness. Instead of like, say like an MMA fighter, if they train for 5 rounds, a 5-round championship fight, or they train for 3 rounds, they would change the game plan for however many rounds they're doing. Now there's only 5 5-minute rounds, so 25 minutes in an MMA fight. So, or you do 3 5-minute rounds in a 3-round fight in MMA competition. You change your game plan to accommodate your fitness levels for each one of those different types of bouts. That's what they could do in football, and that could be a good thing. But there will be a lot of teams, again, like the whole relegation battle thing, which we'll come on to in a second as well. He has made some comments, Gordon Taylor, that saying that football players and teams aren't stupid. They will put safety first. There is a protocol being put together. It's not being done yet. There's a meeting of the shareholders of the Premier League on Friday, and then after that, a document of returning to work should be finalised. So they're literally in the final sort of stages of presenting their proposal to UEFA in restarting the Premier League and getting it back up and running. I know that a few clubs at least. I don't think Liverpool are. But I know a few clubs at least, probably Arsenal and Tottenham, I think they are back in staggered training or something like that. I'm not, and don't quote me on that actually, that's just something that I've read. I believe that they are in training at the moment. So everything still seems to point towards starting the league again. It's just when, how, and what are they going to do to it. What do you think of the whole like reducing halves and reducing possible game time down from 90 minutes to possibly 80? Or the craziest situation, which will be doing 30-minute halves, which I just cannot see doing. I can't see that happening whatsoever. But do feel free to let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Now, the Crystal Palace chairman, I think what's his name, Steve Parish, has come out and he's done something about neutral venues being the least worst option. Now, apparently, relegation threatened clubs are really against using neutral venues, and I'm not entirely sure why. They are arguing that there's no home advantage, no like away advantage. Here comes the cat again. Hiya. You want on my chair? There you go. Yeah, that there's something like no home advantage or anything like that. But he is saying that people that are opposed to football returning at neutral grounds aren't looking far enough down the road because of the economic impact of what this coronavirus pandemic will do. The fact that you're looking at the Crystal Palace chairman here, and you look at Crystal Palace in general, or is he the former Crystal Palace? No, he is the Crystal Palace chairman. And you're looking at clubs like Liverpool that are like we're currently top of the league. We're currently still, as it stands, the champions of Europe, and we're on the brink of having to scrap our transfer plans because of the economic impact. So God knows what it's doing to the clubs that are lower down in the league. Um, a lot of the clubs lower down in the league, I'll get onto that in the next one because I think Carragher talks about it as well. Um, Doing things at neutral venues will actually, I think it would be it's the best of a bad situation. You're not giving an advantage to big teams. You're not giving an advantage to small teams who can create hostile atmospheres. Crystal Palace is one of those that does create a hell of an atmosphere. You know, then you've got clubs like Liverpool who can have a suffocating effect on teams. We've seen it in the past with Anfield and the power of Anfield and everything like that. He goes on to say it's the least worst option. That's the territory where we are in with life at the moment. Next season we'll start with neutral grounds. Or in all likelihood we'll start with neutral grounds, and I'm sure we'd like to get back into our stadiums as soon as possible. There will be a distortion at the competition that way around. All the pitches are pretty much the same size, and an empty stadium is an empty stadium. He's actually right. It's an empty stadium, regardless if you're playing at Anfield or you're playing like at a neutral venue. I can't think of one right now, but if you're playing somewhere else, you haven't got the fans. So creating that atmosphere, being at home or going away, actually doesn't matter. It really doesn't actually matter. So there is possibly an argument to be said, why don't you play at home? But what you want to do is you want to find a set of neutral venues, in my opinion, find a set of neutral venues that are quite close to each other, which is what I believe they're doing. Find them quite close to each other, situate all the teams in the near around it or surrounding areas, and then because you don't want people going from like the bottom end of the country to the top end of the country, to Liverpool, to London, to anywhere else. You want to avoid that as much as possible, because then whatever happens, if people are carriers of this disease or this virus, I should say, you want to lessen the travel up and down the country. Have them all in surrounding areas close to each other, and I think it'll actually be it's the best of a bad situation, as they keep saying. Now, the last point that I want to talk about is the whole no relegation stance of the bottom of the Premier League. Now, the clubs that are against relegation at the moment are the bottom six teams. The bottom six teams are against relegation happening this season. They want, what they're proposing or what they're thinking of is no relegation, crown the champions, crown your European places and all that sort of stuff. No relegation, promote the top two teams from the Championship and run a 22-team Premier League next season. That is what I've heard, that is what I've read. You can't do that, because then you can't take away you can't take away the fact of, or the opportunity for someone in the Championship to win the playoffs. You can't do that. That is a legal minefield, I'm pretty sure, even without even properly reading this article. It's been reported that a growing number of Premier League clubs would be willing to play the remaining fixtures at neutral venues if the threat of relegation was removed. You can't do that. If you can't have relegation, if you and this is me saying this as a Liverpool fan, if you take away relegation, you take away the champions. You take away relegation, you have to take away the champions. You can't reward success at the same time as rewarding failure. So what you're basically saying is that you could play the rest of these 9 games of the Premier League in neutral venues, right? Aston Villa could basically just get on the pitch, sit down. Norwich could sit down. All the bottom 6 teams could just sit down on the pitch, do nothing, get absolutely tanked 12, 15-0, something like that, right? But they're not going to get relegated. You can't do that. You absolutely can't do that. That isn't right. If you're going to do things in neutral venues, but you're still going to crown a champion, you have to crown, or not crown, but you have to have relegation. You have to have relegation. I want to go in and see what Carragher actually says. He says, the thing that disappoints me is that a couple of weeks ago I wrote a newspaper article about the bottom 6 clubs being vocal about reasons the league shouldn't go on, and they were legitimate reasons. Everyone in the Premier League had them in terms of player safety, testing things, fan safety and things, taking things away from the NHS. What really got me off the back of the last meeting was that it has since emerged that the clubs weren't opposed to neutral venues, because as soon as relegation was taken off the table, it was fine to play at neutral grounds. Those clubs around the bottom lost a bit of their argument when that came out. For so long, they've been so vociferous, speaking about reasons, and that's what we want. The teams at the top find it very difficult to talk about the season going on because it looks insensitive, whereas it's completely different for teams at the bottom. But a lot of that, when they said it was okay to play at neutral venues when relegation was scrapped, I just thought it really ruined their argument. I think they lost a little bit of sympathy, the teams at the bottom who have been arguing about different legitimate reasons why they shouldn't play. But as soon as relegation was taken off the table, they were fine with it. That doesn't really sit well. I just don't believe you can't take away whoever is in the playoff positions at the Championship. You can't take away their opportunity to come in to the Premier League. You can't do that, because then what's the point in finishing the Championship apart from for whoever finishes top two, Leeds or West Brom or whoever might jump into those places, because it's not as far apart as everywhere else. You can't take away that opportunity, and I actually just think while we as Liverpool fans are being called selfish because we want the season to be finished, we don't want to be handed the trophy, just have the season cancelled and handed it. We also don't want the season to be voided because we miss our opportunity at claiming the title as well. People will still claim even now, because we're 6 points away, we're 2 wins away from winning the title, that even though we're far out in the hat, mathematically Liverpool still haven't done it, so they can't be awarded the title. Well, mathematically, the teams that are in relegation haven't escaped relegation. So in that same sense, they should still have to fight for their right to be in the Premier League. I didn't mean to quote the Beastie Boys there, but they do. They need to fight for their right to be in the Premier League next season. There's teams in the bottom 3 right now, Norwich, Villa, those two, in my opinion. You got teams in West Brom and Leeds that are better than them. Leeds and West Brom would deserve the chance to come into the Premier League and prove their worth in the Premier League. That's my opinion anyway, and you can disagree with it all you want, but explain how we could play out the rest of the Premier League games. You crown the champions, you get your European places, but there's no relegation. You have to have a 50-50 system of crowning success and people who have failed feeling the effects of that as well. And if that includes relegation, then it includes relegation. You should not be rewarded for failure because you don't want to be relegated, because you don't want to play in neutral venues. You can't reward failure in the same way as rewarding champions. You can't have champions of a league and then all of a sudden you got Leeds and West Brom that are top 2 in their league, for instance, and what's their reward? Another season in the Championship. That's not fair, that's not right, and that can't be what is allowed to go on in future, in my opinion anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like it and subscribe. If you're new around here, happy Tuesday, and I hope that you're all doing well, keeping safe and being well. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you later.